The industry technologically is ready to roll.
Right.
We are ready to roll with it. But the project delays are frustrating because there needs to be political consensus.
Tell me what's new with you and Dräger.
Well, we've just had a carbon capture safety study done in partnership with Statista. So it's an independent piece of research around safety, around carbon capture and storage, and particularly CO2 detection, which is really interesting for us because, of course, the net zero Teesside power station is in progress in the country, and carbon capture is high on the agenda for the UK's energy transition plans. So some of the results from that have been really interesting for us to understand in terms of the approach to safety around carbon capture.
And is that the opportunity that Dräger's really pursuing within the energy transition? Obviously known for your gas detection work. Hydrogen, I guess, could also be another option. But CCS, is that where you're seeing opportunities right now?
I think so. If I don't get too maybe controversial, but we've seen a lot of pauses and breaks around hydrogen in the hydrogen market. I don't think it would be unfair to say HAR1 has been significantly delayed. We've had the HAR2 rounding shortlist announced, but again, limited progress there. And we've seen a move away from hydrogen projects by some big names in the market. So for us, carbon capture is one that has just consistently continue to move forward, not at pace, I would say, but there's been a consistency about it. And I think one of the things that drives it is there are some industries, for example, cement manufacture, where electrification cannot abate those CO2 emissions. So we have to have an alternative, particularly if we are going to continue to pursue construction in a big way in this country, but also across Europe as well. You can't do construction without cement. So there is an inherent CO2 emission problem that comes from that.
And you mentioned the issues with hydrogen. We're still waiting for a UK hydrogen strategy as well.
Yes, still delayed.
I mean, carbon capture is also not exactly moving at pace, as you mentioned. And we've seen on our doorstep, we're both Aberdeen-based. The Dräger Acorn stake is up for sale. There's still a little bit of questions around that. Yep. When you're seeing market drivers like that, are you slightly worried about your proposition in CCS, or Dräger is a European-wide firm, it's a global firm even? Yep. Do you see opportunities outside the UK when we see projects here stall, or is this the main market?
Yeah, it's really interesting, that question. So the study itself that I referenced earlier focuses on 4 key markets: the UK, Australia, South Korea, and Canada. And one of the things that's interesting there, including the UK, we actually don't have any live CO2 storage projects going. Famously very ambitious around that, but actually there's no live projects. Now, Australia has a big one called Gorgon, which actually is linked to oil and gas. It was the development of an oil and gas reserve that naturally had very elevated CO2 concentrations. And Dräger, we supplied a lot of CO2 detection into that plant for CCS. But the beauty of Dräger is the hazard is actually the gas rather than the industry or the application that we're applying it to. So for us, we've got CO2 detection in our portfolio. We have done for a number of applications. Did you know that we actually use, the industry uses CO2 to, as part of the coffee pod manufacturing process. So because it's an inert gas, they sort of have CO2 on top of the coffee beans as part of the coffee pod manufacturing process. It's also used in potato storage as well. So it prevents something called black heart, where potatoes can actually turn black. So they shroud it with CO2. But CO2 is a toxic and hazardous substance. And it's hazardous in potato storage, coffee pod manufacturing, or carbon capture as a result of power station or cement production. So the fascinating thing for us is always we're dealing with the gas and the inherent hazard of the gas. The industry that produces the gas, we're fairly agnostic to. So the technology already exists. And that's the same for us with hydrogen as well. We've been detecting hydrogen for 50 years, variety of different applications. It doesn't really matter to us whether the industry moves forward or not. We have the technology. We are here to educate people around the safety hazard of that gas if that hazard is potentially new to their industry.
Well, you're now speaking my language, because as a journalist, I love coffee. And as a Scotsman, I love chips. So we're speaking about the 2 things that matter most to me in life. So thank you for bringing it around to that. But On that topic of, sort of, doesn't matter what industry it is, CO2 is used across food and drink and, agriculture and so many other things. When it comes to your work within the energy transition, what is the biggest challenge for you right now? Is it policy drivers that are stalling these CCS projects and hydrogen projects? Is it supply chain constraints? What is it that's harming work?
Yeah, for us, I mean, we're manufacturing the products anyway. We haven't had to develop any new gas detectors, as it were, so we don't have a huge amount of skin in the game. Mm-hmm. But what we would like to see is our skin in the game increase because the projects are actually moving forward. I think it has been the pace around the projects that we have found particularly frustrating. So we've got a lot of potential in our pipeline, but that potential is yet to be realized. And it seems to be that policy is holding that up. So a great example of this is with carbon capture, if we think about that in particular. If you're just carbon capture and storage, mm-hmm. it is essentially landfill. You're taking CO2 and you're putting it in the ground. So where's the revenue in that for that industry? And thus it has to be taxation based. It's around carbon emission taxation, for which you require political and global consensus, because otherwise people will just offshore their CO2 emissions where it's cheaper to do so. Yeah. There is an inherent policy requirement around that. And we also see this with hydrogen. The cost of electricity, which is linked to the production of green hydrogen, that again is a political issue. So it seems to me that industry technologically is ready to roll.
Right.
We are ready to roll with it. But the project delays are frustrating in that sense because there needs to be political consensus. And as we know, there's quite a lot of political turmoil.
You're agreeing with your boss. I was reading in the German papers this week that Stefan Dräger was saying, that political consensus and political stability is needed in Germany. But right now, here in the UK, we know we're going to have upheaval, and we know that within the UK energy market, there's no shortage of things that the industry complains about. So is stability the most important thing, or is now the time to shift and listen to industry and maybe make the changes we need, or does industry need more steady as she goes?
I think what I've seen is that turmoil does not support investment decisions. And when those investment decisions are into a new industry like clean energy, that's even more difficult. So we've seen projects stall around brewing and distilling, for example, because of high energy costs, which then puts pressure on profits. That high energy cost is, of course, politically influenced by how we structure the pricing in our economy right now. And that's in an industry that's been going for years and years and years. And so if people won't make investment decisions on projects, plant expansion and plant upgrades in a traditional industry, then you can see how more political uncertainty in an emerging market makes that even more difficult. So for us, consistency around investment decisions and confidence is really important to us. However, when things have been consistently bad, I don't know if I could use the word bad, maybe that's too strong a word, but consistently not optimum. Maybe consistency isn't the best policy, and maybe we do need some change in order to inject some positivity, because if investment relies on confidence needs to rest on positivity. And that is what I would say. There is an element in the UK, our energy prices are some of the highest in Europe. That is putting a real strain on all industries, and therefore all projects, regardless of whether they are in something as emerging as clean energy. But there's an element of, can clean energy bring those costs down as well? Are we talking about two sides of the same coin?